So you've done it. You've created something amazing. A brilliant product, a game-changing service, an idea that you know could make a real difference. But now you're up against the one huge challenge everyone faces. In a world that is just screaming for attention, how do you get anyone to even notice you exist? Yeah, that's the big one, isn't it? It's the question that keeps founders, creators, and marketers staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. You know in your gut you have something of value, but the marketplace is so crowded, so loud, that cutting through that noise feels next to impossible. And what do we usually do? Well, the default answer, the one that feels intuitive, is just to turn up the volume. We throw more money at advertising, we make our claims bigger and bolder, and we basically try to out-yell everybody else, just hoping that someone, anyone, will finally hear us. But what if, and this is a big what if that entire approach is just wrong? In his book, This is Marketing, Seth Godin offers up a pretty radical alternative. What if the most powerful way to make an impact isn't to shout at everyone, but to start by whispering to the very few people who are actually desperate to listen? All right, so let's really get into this, because to even begin to grasp this idea, we have to totally tear down and rebuild our understanding of what marketing even is. You know, the first and probably biggest mistake we all make is confusing advertising with marketing. We use the words like they mean the same thing, but they are worlds apart. Advertising, that's just a transaction. It's about buying eyeballs, renting people's attention for a moment. But marketing is about service. It's the generous act of helping people solve their problems. And this brings us to a really powerful, kind of beautiful redefinition of the whole thing. True marketing is the generous act of creating change. See, it's not about tricking people or hyping them into a sale. It's about seeing a problem that a specific group of people has and generously offering them a way to get to a better place. The whole focus shifts from hype to help. So if marketing is all about creating change, how in the world do you actually do it? Well, the good news is there's a clear roadmap you can follow to put this whole philosophy into action. And what's so interesting is where the process starts. It's not with shouting, it's with creating. Step 1, you make something worth making, something with a story worth telling. Step 2, and this is so important, you design it for just a few people, the ones who will really get it and care. Then, step 3, you tell a story that fits right into the worldview of that tiny group. And only then, at step 4, do you worry about spreading the word. Finally, step 5 is about sticking around, showing up consistently for years to build that crucial trust. Did you catch that? Spreading the word isn't where you begin. It's almost the last thing you do. Okay, I want to zoom in on that second step for a second, because this one idea, man, it changes everything. It's this counterintuitive concept that you have to start with your smallest viable market. The myth we've all been told, right, is to go big or go home. Aim for the biggest possible audience because that's how you maximize your success. But the reality is, the mass market, the mainstream, is the absolute hardest group to reach because they are incredibly resistant to anything new. And you have to ask, why is that? Well, think about it. The mainstream is comfortable. They've already got their favorite brands, their daily routines, their go-to products. They would much rather stick with the solution they already know, even if it's not perfect, than take a risk on something new and unproven. Trying to win them over first is just an uphill battle you're probably going to lose. So what do you do instead? You focus on the smallest viable market. This is a very specific, carefully chosen group of people. They are the niche that will get the absolute most benefit from what you've made. They're small enough that you can truly understand their needs, their dreams, their language, but just big enough to give you that initial spark you need to get things going. And this is where you get this beautiful paradox, right? That tiny group of early adopters, they become your launchpad. They are the ones who are so excited about the change you offer that they don't just use your product, they fall in love with it. And then they tell their friends. So if you ever hope to go big, you absolutely have to start small. Okay, so we figured out who to talk to, our smallest viable market. But how do we build a system that doesn't just reach them, but actually turns them into champions for our cause? Well, this means we need to build a funnel, but maybe not the kind you're used to. We need to build a funnel for evangelists. Let's get real for a minute and talk about the hard economics of paid ads. As more and more people compete for attention, the cost to acquire a single customer just keeps going up and up. And for an average, everyday customer, their total lifetime value to your business is often less than what you paid in ad spend just to get them through the door. The math is broken. So, if the math doesn't work, you need a totally different goal. Your marketing shouldn't be optimized to attract average customers because you'll go broke doing it. Instead, you build an evangelist funnel. This is a system designed with one and only one purpose: to find and attract true fans. These are your brand advocates. These are the people who don't just buy what you sell, they love it, they use it, and they become your volunteer sales force, sharing it with anyone who will listen. This totally flips the script on what advertising is even for. You see, in the old way of thinking, advertising was the engine of growth. You paid money, the engine ran, you got customers. But in this new model, advertising is simply the fuel you pour on a fire that is already burning. Your evangelists create the word-of-mouth fire, and you use ads to find more people just like them to make that fire grow faster and brighter. All right, let's pull all of this together, because what we're really talking about here isn't just a handful of new tactics, it's a whole new way of thinking about marketing, a new mindset. It really boils down to these three core shifts. First, you have to believe that marketing is a generous act of creating change, not just shouting about your stuff. Second, you have to resist the urge to go after the mass market, and instead start with your smallest viable market, the people who truly need you. And third, you need to build a system that's designed to create evangelists, not just one-off customers. And in the end, this whole philosophy changes the question you should be asking yourself. You stop asking, how can I reach everybody? And you start asking something much deeper and way more powerful. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. What generous change are you trying to make, and for whom? Who is your smallest viable market, and what can you do to truly, deeply serve them?